Hello everyone. Welcome back to Tutorial Zone with me Said Piri. So today we're going to look at neurophysiology and we're going to start with spatial senses. And in today's video we're going to start with the eye. So what are spatial senses? Spatial senses are sensations that require specialized organs. Sensations can either be somatic or spatial. Somatic sensations are those sensations that come from the organs such as the skin, for example, touch and all those things. But right now, we're going to talk about sensations that require specific organs. For example, the sense of vision. Sense of vision requires the eye, or sense of hearing requires the ear, as well as the sense of taste requires the tongue, or the sense of smell requires the nose. So we can see that from here, these sensations require specific organs for them to be perceived by the brain. So in this video, we're going to start by looking at the anatomy of the eye, the functional anatomy of the eye. So the eye is made up of three layers. The eye is made up of three layers. The outer layer, middle, as well as the inner layer. Now, the outer layer also known as the fibrous tunic or tunica fibrosa, is made up of one, the posterior part, which is our sclera, and an anterior part, which is our cornea. Now, on the diagram here, this green part here that you are seeing, the posterior part of it is our sclera, while the anterior part of it, from here to somewhere here, is our cornea. Now, the cornea is transparent in that, and by that we mean it allows light rays to pass through. Its function is to refract light rays, or bend light rays in the process of the light rays, when the light rays are being focused on the retina. So that's the function of the cornea. Its color can be blue, brown, and other colors depending on the color of the iris. Then the posterior part is the sclera. This one, compared to the cornea, this one is opaque. Light rays cannot enter through this. Cannot enter through this layer. So generally, the outer layer, which is the sclera and the cornea, function in preserving the shape of the eyeball. Then the second layer that we're going to talk about is the middle layer, also known as the vascular tunic or the tunica vasculosa. This is made up of three structures. The first one being the choroid, which is the largest part. Then serially, body. Then we have the iris. Now, generally, these three are known as the uvea or the uveal tract So our the choroid is the most posterior part, which is the largest. From here to here, we have our choroid there. It is adjacent to the retina. This is having blood vessels or the vascular structure made up of blood vessels or vascular structures that provide nourishment to the photoreceptors in the retina. Then they also have a pigment. They also have a pigment layer or a pigmented layer, the pigment being melanin. With this, it functions to absorb stray light rays that are scattering. It absorbs them, so absorbs stray light rays in order to help in the focusing of the light rays on the retina. So the first function of the choroid is that it provides nourishment to the photoreceptors of the retina, because it has got blood vessels. So it has got a vascular component as well as a pigmented layer. The pigment that we're going to find there is melanin, and functions in absorption of stray light rays. Then the second one here, just as this choroid is extending anteriorly, you have the serially body here. This is also made up of the muscular component, also known as serially body proper. These muscles in here are innervated by the parasympathetic nervous system. They function in accommodation during far-sighted vision and near-sighted vision. The lens has to accommodate in order to, it has to keep changing in order to focus light rays on the retina. So the serial body are the ones that are going to help in that process, together with these ligaments that we're going to talk about here. Then the vascular component, also the vascular component, this is known as ciliary process. The function of this ciliary process function in production of aqueous humor. We're going to talk about aqueous humor later on as we're going to finish our video. So that's the ciliary body muscular component, ciliary body proper, or which I've said these are muscles that are innervated by the parasympathetic nervous system, and they function in helping in accommodation, changing the curvature of the lens. Then you have the vascular component, which is a serially process function in production of aqueous humor. Then, as this extends anteriorly, they form the iris here. They form the iris. The iris is made up of muscles, sphincter, constrictor, pupillae, and the dilator and the dilator pupillae muscles. This, the constrictor pupillae, function in constriction of the eye of the pupil. As you can see here, as the on the iris here, there is an opening in between here where light rays pass. This opening is known as the pupil. So when light is shown in the eye, the pupil will constrict in order to allow for light rays to be focused on the retina. When the person is in the dark, the pupil is going to dilate. So this is due to the fact that the muscles in the iris are the one that are helping in that process. So the constrictor pupillae will constrict the pupil. This is a process. This is known as meiosis. Then the dilator pupillae will dilate the pupil. You can tell even from the name. It's known as mydriasis. Mydriasis is due to the sympathetic nervous system, while myiasis is due to the parasympathetic nervous system. So the other part of the iris that I have to talk about, the fact that the iris gives color to the cornea. So if a person has got a black iris, their cornea will look black. If a person has got a blue iris, their cornea will also look blue. So the iris functions in determining the amount of light that is entering the eye through the process of pupil constriction or pupil dilation. Then the other layer that we're going to talk about is the inner layer, also known as the neural layer or tunica nervosa. Tunica nervosa. This is only made up of the retina. Now the retina has got two layers. The first one is the neural layer. This is made up of cones and rods, which are photoreceptors, which we're going to talk about in the other video. Then it's also made up of a pigmented layer. We're also going to look at this more in details. The retina will have its own video. So if I just show here where the retina is, this blue part here is the retina. Now if I were to zoom in here, the way the retina will look, it will have this layer here, then it will have another layer beneath that, then my choroid. Here I've used the choroid in red, but here I'll use green to differentiate them. So this layer that is inside, this part of the retina that is inside, is the neural layer. Then this one that is just adjacent to the choroid is the pigmented layer or pigment layer. Then this one is our choroid there. So the function of the retina is to absorb light rays. So when light rays hit the retina, then the processes of vision, the processes involved in vision will continue into transduction of the light rays into an action potential that will be sent to the brain for perception of the image to occur. So apart from these structures that we have talked about that are part of these three layers, some of the structures that we can talk about is one of them is the conjunctiva. This is a thin mucous membrane that covers the exposed part of the eye. It covers the exposed part of the eye. Another part of this conjunctiva is the one that lines the upper eyelid, lines the inside of the upper eyelid. Then you can also talk about the zonules or suspensory ligaments. These function in accommodation, in changing the curvature of the lens. So this would depend with whether the ciliary muscle here is going to contract or relax. When it contracts, these become loose and then the lens will bulge, and that would depend with when you're talking about near vision or vision at a far distance. We're going to talk about that when you're talking about accommodation. But for now, you have to know that the zonules or the suspensory ligaments function in accommodation. Then the other thing that I have to talk about on the cornea that I didn't say at the beginning is that the cornea, so zonules here or suspensory ligaments, that the cornea is made up of 5 layers. The cornea is made up of 5 layers. The first layer is the stratified epithelium layer. The second one is the Bowman membrane, also known as anterior elastic lamina. Then you have substantia proper. Then we have the descent layer or posterior elastic lamina. Then you have endothelial layer at the bottom there. So those are the 5 layers of the cornea. Then the other thing that you have to know is the lens. Situated just posterior to the iris is the lens. This functions in refraction, bending of light rays. The same function as the cornea, bending of light rays so that they should allow focus of those light rays on the retina. Okay, so the other thing that we're going to talk about is the fluid component of the eye. So there are 2 fluids that we're going to find. The first one is the vitreous humor. Then aqueous humor as our second. So vitreous humor is present just behind the lens. This whole part is filled with the vitreous humor. Also known as vitreous body. So this is composed of mainly albumin and hyaluronic acid. Then the aqueous humor is present in front of the lens, as well as just behind the iris, as well as in front of the iris here, behind the cornea. That's where our aqueous humor is. So this part where the aqueous humor is divided into two compartments by the iris. From the lens to the iris, this part here is known as the posterior compartment. Then from the lens, from the iris to the cornea, that is the anterior compartment. So the aqueous humor fills up the anterior compartment and the posterior compartments, both behind and in front of the iris, and it's made up of water, about 98.1% water, then about 1.2 solids. These solids can have they are organic and inorganic substances, such as glucose, lactate, urea, sodium ions, potassium ions, phosphate ions. They're also going to be found in the aqueous humor. So these two fluids function in maintaining the shape of this eyeball. So let's look at the last part of this video, which is this is known as the fundus oculi. Why have I decided to bring it up? I've decided to bring it up because it has got two important structures. One is the optic disc. The second one is the macular lutea. So this fundus oculi is simply the posterior part or wall of the interior of the eyeball. So you're just looking at the back of the interior. In the interior of the eyeball, you're just looking at the back, at the furthest end of that eyeball. You're looking at it from the inside. So the most important two structures that we're going to see here in the fundus oculi, also known as the fundus, simply known as the fundus, we're going to see the optic disc and the macular lutea. So this is the optic disc, also known as optic papilla. This is a pale disc. It's present on the medial aspect of the posterior wall, and it is formed by convergence, a coming together of the ganglionic cells, ganglionic cell axons, where they form the optic nerve. So you're going to find the formation. Where you're going to find the formation of the optic nerve, that's where the optic disc is. It is also known as the blind spot. Why? It is made up of all layers of the retina. But doesn't have the cones and rods. So cones and rods are absent on the optic disc. So due to that, these are light. This part here is light insensitive. It's not sensitive to light. So since it's not insensitive to light, no image can form when light rays hit the optic disc. Hence the name blind spot. That's why they're known as the blind spot. Then the second part here that you're having is the macular lutea, also known as yellow spot. So macular lutea just a yellowish spot, a bit lateral to the optic disc. A bit lateral to the optic disc. So this is my medial aspect, this one is my lateral aspect. So just a bit lateral to this optic disc, that's why you're going to find the macular lutea. This has got a tiny or minute depression at the center called fovea centralis. Fovea centralis. This part here, the fovea centralis, has a lot of cones. Due to this, it is involved in high visual acuity. Visual acuity is the ability of the eye to differentiate or to be able to recognize shapes of objects, precise shapes of objects, or can also be defined as the ability of the eye to differentiate two objects when they have been brought together. So with that said, we are done with the functional anatomy of the eye. So just watch out for more videos that are coming. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, comment, and suggest the topics that you want us to make for you. Thank you.